Okay, so in the past few weeks, there have been a lot of noise about Google's web DRM and whether or not this is going to be good for the internet, or if this is another way for Google to monopolize the internet. The problem with what most people identify as being Google trying to monopolize the internet is that they overlook the fact that the internet is a collection of websites that people like you and me, people that come to this channel, and the guy who makes this channel possible is running a website. So if we stop running websites, obviously the internet does not exist because it's really a collection of websites. And so with the DRM, the biggest question, and something I have not seen anybody talk about, is how will this affect SEO? How will this affect you as someone who runs a website, whether it's a service website, a business website, a website that does affiliate marketing? Regardless of what you do, how will this affect you? And the question is, it might be a seismic effect. It might have a huge effect on your website, and it might even perhaps just kill your website altogether, because if Google's history is anything to go by, you can't really trust them to make the internet safe. Each time there's an update, each time there's something, they're not really making the internet safe. They're making the internet more financially lucrative for themselves. And so whether it's the Panda update, whether it's the helpful content update, regardless of what it is Google search trying to make it more profitable for themselves. Because even today, if you do a Google search for many terms, I can show you spam websites that are ranking on the top 3-4 positions, and not just for smaller countries like where I do SEO, but also for larger countries and larger places like the US and Canada. You can see literally spam classified sites that we all know are spam that are ranking 1, 2, and 3 on Google search. And if you create a spam classified site to match those sites, auto-generated sites, really, and a lot of these are auto-generated, you will rank within weeks in the top spot with probably a few backlinks. So we all know Google has not made the internet any safer. Their unscrupulous cryptocurrency websites are ranking very well. So really the YMYL update is also, it doesn't really work as advertised. And so what it has done though, it has penalized people like us who do SEO, who do genuine white hat SEO, because at the end of the day, we don't want our websites to be penalized. And so we follow Google's guidelines, and we follow it in a way that helps us optimize the site, but not jeopardize it if we're not doing a good job of it. So this is called the new DRM that Google wants to introduce, and I think they have already begun introducing it with the new Chrome. It's called Web Environment Integrity. Now, this is an article from bleepingcomputer.com. So just want to make this reference here. And what they say is that Web Environment Integrity is a new API proposal that introduces a website trust mechanism that allows websites to evaluate the authenticity of devices and network traffic of our clients' browsers and block fake and insecure interactions. For instance, this mechanism can be used to detect whether a human or a bot is visiting a website, whether a particular browser or a specific type of device is trustworthy. Now, I mean, yeah, well, how will that affect web integrity? Well, I'll tell you exactly what this means. Websites will use the API request to request a token from a certified attester, which will be cryptographically signed to prevent tampering, helping the former validate the client's information is legitimate. Now, what this means, well, let me unpack this for you. The first thing is, once Google is able to identify what device you're using, which Google can identify pretty well even today, they can identify if you look at your GA4 stats, if you check the traffic for sources in GA4, you will see that Google shows you whether it's coming from an Android device, an iOS device, a Windows device, or a MacBook or Linux. operating system. So it's not like Google can't identify this. But if you read between the lines, Google is also saying that it will block fake and insecure interactions. Now, it means fake and insecure interactions that Google identifies as being it. So Google can deem any interaction and as being insecure. So if you were using, for instance, a Brave browser to bypass the ads on a website, that can be seen as being insecure interaction. And when that's done, your browser will not be able to access that website. So if someone was trying to use the Brave browser to access my website that has ads on it, that has a pop-up on it, and Google sees that this is another website, that this is another browser that's not a Google browser, that's not authorized to access the site because it has these mechanisms in place that allow it would mean that they would not be able to access my website. That being said, this is secure in the way that the ads running on my website, you won't be able to bypass those ads. Yes, I'll get less traffic, but if I'm running Google ads in particular, maybe even media-wide, depending on who Google decides to partner with, and this is also a big if, because Google can just say, all their partners need to have a certain software, and with that software, if you're working with that partner and placing ads on your site, only then will Google allow people using their browsers or people partnering with them using their browser. So if you're using an Edge browser or a Safari browser, only in that case you'll be able to access that web page. And so that makes that narrows it down to maybe like 3 or 4 browsers that have signed the agreement with Google, that have allowed this mechanism to be implemented in their browsers. It's only in that case that using that browser, you'll be able to access that website. But for the website owner, they'll have to use an advertising platform that has been certified by Google in order for them to receive any advertising revenue and for them to be able to run any kind of advertising successfully. And this is where, website owners kind of need to be careful with all of this, and we need to be aware of what Google is trying to do. Google says it's trying to ascertain the authenticity of the device and software. In my experience in 15 years of doing SEO, there are 2 types of traffic that you get to a website. You get human traffic, so someone like me will go to www.google.com and try to search for something. Or you'll get bot traffic. So the bot traffic comes from Google itself, so it's Google bot, is Ahrefs' own bot, it's now, and that's bot traffic. So in my experience, there's no other types of traffic that will come to your website other than that. So either it's a human traffic or it's one of these bots. And so there are different types of bots, but the vast majority of bots are just the bots that we know of. So by doing this and by saying this, that we're trying to prevent unauthorized access or whatever the terminology is, what Google is essentially saying is that you need to be Google certified to run your website. You need to be Google certified to access the website. And not only are we going to do this with Chrome, we're also going to do this by partnering with other browser manufacturers like Safari and Edge. And so if you have a problem or if you don't like it, well, you're just bad luck, because if you're using Linux, you're probably using Mozilla, you're not going to be able to access the internet. If you're using another unauthorized browser, like the Brave browser, you will not be able to access the internet. That is essentially what Google is moving towards. So the web browser manufacturers obviously don't like this, and they put out tweets and articles and stuff like that and talked about it. From an SEO perspective, this can be a seismic shift, because if you don't implement Google's framework on your website, and I guarantee that there will be a snippet of code that you need to put on your website, like similar to GA4 code or like the Google Search Console code. There will be code that you need to put on your website in order for it to even be indexed. So if you don't do that, you might not even get indexed. Now, this is regardless of whether or not you're trying to run ads. And the way Google will phrase this is it will prevent your site from being attacked by hackers, by phishing attacks, or people trying to, I don't know, do anything malicious with your website. The problem is that Google has no way of preventing that. Google is just a search engine and their browser is just a browser. So a person who's trying to run let's say a DDoS attack on your website doesn't really need to use Chrome browser. There are other tools that they can use to ping your website multiple times, hundreds of times a second, and that will result in your website crashing. And so this doesn't really prevent that. It's just fancy. It's a fancy way of wording stuff that makes it look like they're actually doing something for you, but that's not the case. So I don't know like what we should do to prevent this from happening, except for just spreading awareness about it. But I would say read up on it. I have a link in the description. There are quite a few of these websites that have published articles on this, and this is it's one of the hottest topics now in the internet community, but nobody's talking about it from the perspective of search. And as an SEO, Google requires that I put code on a website to have it indexed. I will use that code, even though if it may lock out a lot of my potential visitors, but that's the risk I would have to take, because without Google, I will not be able to drive traffic. But that would also mean that if everyone does that, the vast majority of our options in terms of the browsers we use and the operating systems we use will be very limited. So I hope you guys like the video, like and subscribe. If you have a question about this, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Google's latest escapades. So see you guys in the next video.